There should have been about 12 to 13 first-year soldiers in a single company. A battalion consists of 3 companies, so there must have been 30 to 40 first-year soldiers in the entire battalion. 3 students from our normal school, teacher training school, were assigned, but in the end, I was the only one who survived the war, and that has made me feel ashamed somehow. We were prepared to die, so I felt ashamed of coming out alive. Since Iejima is a small island, there was no way we could escape. We mainly engaged in training for attacking tanks and digging foxholes. There was a team leader and an assistant instructor for the training sessions. For training, we built mock M4 tanks out of plywood, with 2 people holding them up and playing the role of M4 tanks. The training consisted of soldiers hiding in the foxholes saying, M4 closing in at 50 meters, approaching 30 meters. As the mock tanks came within 7 meters or 8 meters, the soldiers would yell, jump out of their foxholes, and start attacking the tanks. Our weapons were makeshift 7-kilogram to 10-kilogram bombs. We handled 7-kilogram makeshift bombs. These makeshift bombs were wooden boxes that were about 30 centimeters high, with 4 sides covered by wooden plates, about 1 centimeter thick. We packed the boxes with yellow powder from dynamite. In those days, fuses were scarce, so we placed grenades on top of the yellow powder, substituting them for fuses. We had the striker from the grenade sticking out from the yellow powder, placed a cover on the top of the box, and held it in place with nails. We would carry the box-shaped makeshift bombs in our back like a rucksack with a rope, having a diameter of about 1.5 centimeters. Since there were no mountains on Iejima, there was nothing to serve as a shield. The first-year soldiers were immediately assigned to various squads. Since the U.S. ship-based planes kept bombing us one after another during the daytime, all we could do was hide. In the evening, the U.S. ship planes would return to their ships, so we would then receive instructions to attack. In response to our attacks, the U.S. forces would begin naval bombardments a little while later. That made us more fearful. Howitzers were also quite terrifying. Howitzer shells would fly over us, making spattering and whirling sounds. We had no way of knowing where they would land. A situation like this lasted for 1 week until April 16th. The U.S. forces landed on Iejima during the daytime of the 16th. The terrain on the north side of Iejima is a cliff that goes straight down, so armored cavalry such as tanks couldn't land from there. We had expected the U.S. forces to land from the south side of Iejima, therefore we laid mines and set up strong points, or so-called trenches. Since our weapons were considered to have been bestowed upon us by His Majesty, the Emperor of Japan, all the troops would go searching if we dropped even a single cartridge during an exercise. In contrast, the U.S. forces had carbines that were fully filled with bullets. The American soldiers were firing their carbines rapidly with one hand. It would be no contest if we engaged in a firefight with them. As we lay low and kept ourselves hidden, Sergeant Taniguchi said to everyone, "Keep 1 grenade for killing yourself, and throw the other grenades while laying low and keeping your heads down." If we stuck our heads out, we would become targets of American fire. We just shot randomly and kept one grenade hidden in our pockets. Even after that, all we heard were the sounds of shots fired by the U.S. forces. The Tamura Company, a friendly force, had rapid-fire guns. They were supposed to provide covering fire for us by firing at the U.S. forces, but they shot us from behind instead. They stopped firing immediately, but if they had continued shooting their rapid-fire guns, we probably would have been injured by that shooting. I think Sergeant Taniguchi had given up. He called out to me, "Hey, Toyozato." When I replied, "Yes," he told me, "Put your makeshift bomb in the center." Therefore, I placed the makeshift bomb. There were only 2 PFCs who were already wounded and Sergeant Taniguchi around me. Since the sergeant was the commander, he did not have a makeshift bomb. He just wore a saber by his side. Sergeant Taniguchi said, "Pull the pin from the grenade." I couldn't defy his order, so I pulled the pin. Thinking that this was it, I gave up and closed my eyes. If I kept my eyes open, it would have been scary, so I closed my eyes. The 2 PFCs, as if they had already planned it, shouted very loudly, "Sergeant, sir, it's still too early to die." They both shouted at the same time. Prompted by the sudden cry of the 2 soldiers, Sergeant Taniguchi said, "Oh, I see. Saying so, he retracted his order to pull the pin from the grenade. I felt relieved. It was a feeling of being spared. I could now say, "Oh, I've been saved." But at that time and at that place, I could never have dared to say, "I've been saved."